Well, give me an alternate then. Go on. I said God. You give me an alternate.
What I'm doing is I'm looking at the evidence that we have at the moment and saying I don't know. What you're doing is, in my opinion, you're essentially making something up to give reason for what you think.
No, but you're saying something.
And there's absolutely no evidence for it. So what I'm saying is I don't know. And what you're saying is I know, even though in my opinion you just have absolutely no evidence for it whatsoever.
Yeah, but when you say evidence, what exactly is it you're looking for?
Evidence.
Yeah, but even what is it you're looking for in order to come to a conclusion there is an uncaused cause? You can't just say scientific and try to say that is the way, my way or the highway.
I'm not standing here and saying you're wrong.
No, you said you're looking for evidence. So in order for you to...
I have no evidence to say this.
No, I'm not saying you have evidence or not. You're saying without evidence, I'm saying something. So ultimately it comes to the conclusion that you have a criteria that you're looking for. And what is this criteria?
I know I don't mean to be offensive, but I don't... We have fairy tale creatures.
Doesn't matter.
Why are they any different to this God?
But what I'm saying is that
that's kind of how I look at it.
Trust me, not to be offensive to the atheists, but to me, anyone.
If I was atheist, I haven't got any reason to believe in a God because I've not.
I'm not saying I'm not saying your worldview is different to many of the atheists or agnostic even. What I'm saying is that to me, it is a fairy tale to believe that we came from nothing. In fact, that is a bigger fairy tale and something which I will not accept regardless of belief in science or not. But if you want to use intellect and if you want to use even the evidence that is present, yes, take the most minutest atom or maybe the galaxies or something like that. If anyone tells me that you do not see a design in that, you do not see somebody actually built that or modified it or brought it into existence and it's just popped out of nowhere, to me that is more unbelievable than an intelligent designer.
All you know is a dead religion.
You don't want to call him God, that's fine, call him intelligent designer.
But then where did he come from? He came out of nowhere then.
There you go, we already discussed this, remember? In order for you to avoid...
He or she, or whatever God is.
The only logical way for us to conclude that we exist, yes, and we are basically not in some sort of infinite loop of what created what, the only possible outcome, and I mean that both philosophically, intellectually, and even scientifically. No scientist will tell you that we came from nothing. You see what I mean? So the question goes back to, so if you're looking for God using the lens of science, then you're using the wrong tool. Because things about the spiritual world and metaphysical world, you cannot use something which is physical to identify that. So you're using the wrong tool in the first place. So for you to say I don't have evidence and you don't have evidence, your evidence suggests that...
I'm not going to stand here and say this is exactly what happened because none of us know.
No, but your evidence or your criteria that you're looking for is something that is physical to find out about the metaphysical. Isn't that using the wrong tool?
I'm just not going to stand here and say I know what happened, I know that this is exactly why we exist, because I have no evidence to suggest that I do. So anyone that stands
you mention evidence again
and says this is how it was, I know everything.
No, you mentioned evidence again, but what is exactly you're looking for in order to find out there's a metaphysical world?
Scientific proof. That's how we live our lives.
You're using the wrong tool then.
Otherwise you're just standing up there.
Okay, let me ask you, do you have consciousness?
Define consciousness.
The fact that
I'm conscious, yeah.
You're conscious of what? That you exist?
Yeah, of my existence.
And you're certain about that?
No.
Why? Whom am I talking to then? If you're not certain about your own existence, whom am I why are you looking for God? I don't understand. If you are not even sure that you exist, then what science has concluded then based on your evidences that you're looking for? You don't even know that you exist. You see what I mean? So you see, the reason I asked you about consciousness is that because there's something called the hard problem of consciousness. You heard of that, yeah? From the scientist world. The reason they say that is because we all know we have consciousness. You cannot deny that. Yes? I exist, hence this is what consciousness basically is defined as. Now that is something which is immaterial, and there's no way science can find out about this immaterial world using the tools of science, because science, like you said, is what you observe, what you can measure, what you can see, these things, you know. So it's beyond the bounds of science, and you cannot use the tool of science which is limited in its ability to know about things which are immaterial. Like even your own consciousness, let alone God Almighty.
Yeah.
So if anyone tells me that I know I am conscious, but I don't know if I exist, then they're not certain about themselves even. So everything you say is really meaningless because you don't even know if you exist. I'm just maybe talking to some atoms and molecules here. You see what I mean? You see,
I think you are actually. That's actually
well, atoms and molecules will not have the consciousness which you do.
Because you've got the loaves and the fishes.
Because an atom by itself is unaware.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But you are quite aware. For example, if somebody wanted to hurt you, you will move away. But if there was a bunch of atoms, like for example, say a rock, yes? Do you think if we're going to hit the hammer, you'll realize that it's going to get hurt? So there I'm saying,
okay,
if you're going to use the wrong tools to identify things, then you'll not identify them.
okay.
And hence, to rely on just on science to know about the immaterial world is something which is illogical, which you'll never.
But I can't say.
You should not use that as criteria.
With conviction about things that I can't see and feel and touch and hear.
No, but you can.
I can't say anything about that with conviction.
Yeah, but there's something called deductive analysis. So, for example, if everything that you see around you has to come from somewhere, then it is only fair to say that it's not nothing. So you have two options: either it came from nothing or it came from something.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can give me a third alternative. Maybe it created itself. But if it's not conscious about itself even, how will it create anything? You see what I mean? So that is something which is logically impossible. Coming from nothing is also logically impossible. Because if it's nothing, then it doesn't even exist. It's just a concept. See what I mean? So what is the third alternative that's left? It has to be something. Do you agree?
And why is that God?
Well, you can, like I said, if you don't want to call,
What do you mean? What's the other alternative? It could be anything. Literally,
well, call it what you want.
God?
Call it what you want. Call it intelligent designer.
Exactly, call it intelligent design.
If you don't like the term God, maybe it's got some baggage from an atheistic perspective, then you can call it what you want. But the important thing is to recognize that's
Can I ask
something.
you though, do you believe in one God or do you believe in multiple gods?
Oh no, that would be a contradiction as well to believe in multiple gods.
Okay, so you think that there are a number of different religions then?
Yeah, there are religions which believe in multiple gods.
And you think
but there are monotheistic religions which believe in only one God.
Okay. But
Again, the reason we don't believe.
Polytheistic religions are flawed.
Yes. Shall I tell you why? Because imagine if there are two gods, they're equally powerful. Yes?
Yeah.
Then who really calls the shots?
See, I'm struggling because if I'm born in one,
I'll tell you why. Imagine now the sun is going to set. The other god says no, it has to rise. What happens?
Conflict.
And that's exactly, if you look at those religions which believe in polytheism, like Hinduism and the Greek gods, they always used to fight each other. Why they used to?
have conflict?
No, because when you have conflict, then you have chaos. When you have chaos, then there is no order.
But there is chaos.
there is chaos. Yeah.
Well, chaos in the universe. Where? Give me one place where you see chaos. No, in the universe, what chaos do you see? I'm talking about the planets and the galaxies, yes, and the suns.
It's chaotic.
And the stars. I see order. I don't see chaos.
No, it's absolutely.
Look at the planets. Do they revolve around their own orbits?
Yeah, but
Do they crash into each other?
That is science. We know why that is through science.
No, but is that chaos or is that order?
Order to me.
Do they
You've looked at the solar system, it's completely chaotic.
Give me one example in the solar system is chaotic.
The solar system that we live in is...
Give me one example that's chaotic. Go on. Anything that you see.
Listen, mate, I'm not an astrophysicist, okay?
Well, you made a claim.
The Brownian motion, right? That they talk about the movement of cells in the random order.
Yeah.
Or movement of atoms.
Yeah.
That Brownian motion is chaotic.
But how is it, when you say chaotic, now there is different understanding of chaotic. So one chaotic, for example, take the cancer cells. Yes, they cause something which is negative, which is harmful to your body, or maybe something chaotic in the universe, like the black hole, for example. Yeah, it sucks up galaxies and stars and stuff like that. Now, when you say chaotic, maybe that is the
Chaotic is just randomness.
hear me out. Maybe the intelligent designer put these things which appear as chaotic to you, but they're not really chaotic. Yes, there might be reasons for that. But what I mean chaotic is like something random which has got no meaning at all.
Yeah, that's
but the reason the scientists are able to explain these things shows me that there is a reason behind it. There are physical laws which act upon it, which causes these things to happen. I don't see them as chaotic. I see that there is a reason behind everything. But if anyone says to me that all this came from nothing, to me that is a bigger fairy tale than any fairy tale you heard of.
That's why we have been redeemed.
So any scientist, if they tell you that, oh, we don't have evidence for God, then they're using the wrong tool. Because you're using a tool which can only measure the material world, and they're completely oblivious of the immaterial world.
Because the other issue is
No one can talk about the immaterial world with any form of conviction because no one has any idea.
Consciousness. I just talked about it. And you have an idea. But you will not realize that that is something which is immaterial, which you have it. It is only denial on your part if you think that doesn't exist. To me, consciousness exists and you know it exists as well. So anyone who says that consciousness doesn't exist, you're not even aware of your own self, then to be honest with you, you're no different to a rock. Because the rock is not conscious, but you are.
I mean, a rock isn't a living species with organs.
Exactly. What defines it as non-living?
I think senses is
Yes.
what's missing.
You being sentient and the rock being non-sentient, yes, proves to us that there is a difference between the two. One has got consciousness and intellect and ability to have a conversation, for example, ability to move away from danger when they see it, ability to do things, to create civilizations. All this comes from nothing? No, there is something, even within your own self.
There was something. I'm just not standing here and saying God created that something.
Well, you give me an alternative. I gave you 3 options. Exactly.
I'm not going to stand here and give any answers because I have no fucking idea, as does anyone else here.
don't use the
So
word
I'm not
God.
just going to
What
stand
do
here
you
and
have as
say
alternative?
this.
In that case, just say I don't know.
Exactly, that's what I do say.
Exactly, and
I
that's
don't
what you
stand up here saying this is exactly
But
what
you see,
happened and I can tell you with
the reason I say God, maybe you don't like the term God, you can call it, like I said, intelligent designer. I see an intelligent design even in the smallest of cells, smallest of atoms, and the planets, the solar systems and the galaxies. I see a clear, a clear theme in these things, that something has designed this.
How do you explain something? How do you explain something which is
Do you have consciousness?
complex and it has?
Do you have consciousness?
That's
Do you have consciousness?
millions of years of evolution.
Do you have consciousness?
Millions and millions of years of evolution.
Do you exist? Do you think you exist?
Do I think I exist?
Yes.
Well, imagine if I had some sort of...
No, answer the question. Do you think you exist?
Imagine if I had some sort of a mental health problem and I thought that I was also a pony or a magical dragon.
Yeah.
I thought, I'm split into 2 things. Myself, the human being, and another magical dragon. And I can see you from 2 different angles.
Okay.
Does that mean that the magical dragon exists?
Okay, are you you have a mental disorder? You don't. Do you imagine dragons and ponies? No, you don't. But I'm asking you, look, I just asked you about your consciousness.
I can imagine
Do you think you exist or not?
I can imagine an intelligent designer, and
You
that's
can?
the argument that you're making.
Okay, if you can imagine, then that's fine.
Argument does not hold weight.
No, it does. I'll tell you why. The reason you're not answering my question about your consciousness is because you know it exists, but you just don't want to admit it. Is that right?
No, you're wrong.
Okay, so do you?
want to answer
So answer the question then.
Well, I don't want to answer loaded questions.
Why is it loaded? Do you think my question was loaded? When I asked you about your consciousness, do you think it was loaded?
No, he was answering. So
The reason you don't want to answer it because you're in
You
denial.
only have a binary thought process. You can only think inside the box. You need to think outside the box.
Okay, think outside the box. Do you exist?
Answer my question then.
What is your question?
The magical dragon.
Okay, what about a magical dragon? I don't need to be mad to imagine a magical dragon. I can imagine it now.
Does it exist?
Of course it doesn't exist. That's why I call it an imagination.
It has a consciousness though.
Who, the dragon or you? The dragon has consciousness. Okay.
Because it would exist
Does it even exist?
according to your argument.
Okay, wait. In order for you to imagine this dragon, hold on. Listen to my question first. Okay, you're jumping the gun. In order for you to imagine this dragon, do you need consciousness? There you go. You're in denial now. And that is exactly what I wanted to point out to you. Because look, a man, if he doesn't know if he exists or doesn't exist, then you got more to worry about than magical dragons, trust me.
What about people that aren't well and everybody else is telling them that they should believe in certain things or they shouldn't believe?
Look,
There's
I'm not
always-
saying you should. I'm not saying you
always a point
should.
where-
I will not force you to believe something that you don't want to. All I'm saying is that if you look around the world, yes, first question I'll ask you is, do you think it exists from nothing? The universe. Do you think it came from nothing?
I don't think it's. I don't think that's an important question.
It's a very important
No one knows
question.
the answer to that question.
No. I'm not telling you. Look, at least I'm sure you must have thought about it. Yes? An intelligent person thinks many things, and one of the things that you would have asked yourself is, where did all this come from? Am I right? Now, it is not mad of anyone to ask this question. To me, it is a natural process for a human being, because we have the ability to think, and because we exist, the most important thing, yes, then you will ask these critical questions. Whether you get an answer, that's a different matter. But the important thing is that, so the question is, look, there are 3 options I gave this gentleman, which you can think of. You can add more if you want. Number 1, did it come from nothing? Number 2, did it create itself? Number 3, did someone create it?
I think it's because the universe,
you can add more if you want.
Because the universe at this point, I think we're at, I'm not an expert, I think the point in physics, we can actually look back and see the point at which the universe began, and I think they can do this. And they can also see
that wasn't my question,
edge or the end of a universe that is infinitely expanding. So we can still see that
it's not infinite; it's finite, by the way.
How do you know the answer to that?
Because
where is your evidence for
after a period of time?
Well, it's expanding, isn't it?
So if
it is expanding, it has to be finite.
The universe was
you have
contract.
no evidence for it.
I just told you. Look, logically, think about this. What is infinite? Something that doesn't have an end. Right?
No, something that we
hold on, I'm talking to him, just one sec. If something is expanding, listen, if something is expanding, surely it's finite. Take a balloon, for example. You know, most of the scientists, they give you this example about the universe expanding. Exactly my point. So you have answered the question for me. Thanks.
That's at the edge
this is
of the universe.
Come off on a tangent.
No, it's not.
Yeah, we are.
No, it's not. So these 3.
After a certain period
Wait.
of time.
About the universe existing, first and foremost, my question wasn't how it began to exist. My question was, what brought it into existence? Nothing, something, or by itself.
Something.
If you want to add more, wait, if you have there more if there are more, no, always there. So
questions are very, very limited because we're bound by our perception.
of course it has to be. So there's always a limit to human thought. No, it's not limited.
Our perception, we can answer those questions.
Okay, I'll tell you what. I've given you these 3 options. You can add more. Hold on. You can add more alternatives. If you think mine are limited, hold on. If you think my questions are limited and narrow, please add more to it. I gave you these 3 options. The universe came from nothing, it created itself, or it came from something. If you think this is narrow and limited, please add more.
It just always exists.
Because maybe yours is more broader than mine.
It always exists.
If you can't think of more, then yours is no different to mine. Thank you.
It always existed. It's a 1 or a 0. Either something's there or it's not there.
Okay, so is the universe there?
Yeah.
Good. Where did it come from?
Where did it come from?
No one knows the answer to that question. That's
One at a time. Where did it come? Sorry, what was the answer?
It could always just be there. Just like I'm always here, I'm here. I'm always here, I'm there. There might be many, many universes.
Do you know the problem with that?
They might float in and out of existence.
Do you know the problem with that?
That's a well-known. I think it's quantum physics.
No, it's not quantum physics.
That?
That's not quantum physics. Have you heard of infinite regress?
I've not heard of it.
Okay, that solution which you just mentioned, that it exists eternally, has an issue when you put in infinite regress. I'll give you the example of infinite regress. Infinite regress is, for example, something that has a series of things infinitely. For example, if you wanted to borrow a book in a library, and there were infinite number of people in front of you, would you ever get a book? Exactly. And that is the problem with an eternal universe. It wouldn't exist.
Right.
Because
by your calculations, by your technology.
I just give you the infinite regress, which you didn't know about.
Just like if I looked into the sky and I say, oh well, that's an infinite distance.
My friend, this is.
If I build a machine that can look a lot further, my technology's improved, and then I can look further.
What if your machine was unable to look at even your consciousness?
Consciousness is a relative theory. We don't know.
A relative theory?
We don't know.
So you don't. Wait a minute. You think you don't have consciousness, or you do?
Yeah, but if my brain's destroyed, I don't know whether consciousness exists.
Exactly. Your brain has to be there for you to realize you're conscious. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So does it exist? Because you got a brain, I assume so.
I just gave you that argument there.
Because earlier he wasn't sure if you existed, and now he's saying it's related to the brain. So now you answered yourself.
Very loudly, and I don't think your argument. I don't see where your argument is here.
Okay, which part of my argument you didn't understand?
No, I just don't know what you're getting at.
What I'm getting at, look,
I'm saying I don't know the answer to these questions.
That's fine.
I'm not saying
that's fine with
someone didn't create the
Look, if you say I don't know, I'm okay with that.
So I can't stand here with
what happened? You backed out?
This is exactly.
Good thing you got a brain and you know you're conscious. He finally answered his own question. Good, no problem. Take care. Careful, guys. Okay. Look, all
regression apply to God as well?
No, it doesn't.
Why?
Because in order, the fact that we exist today shows us that there is not an infinite regress. There has to be an uncaused cause to have this existence.
To the universe as well,
no, it doesn't, because the universe is not something that is sentient.
and really make
No, but
up
we're
my
sentient
mind.
within the
And
universe.
that's a
Yeah, but who
wonderful-
caused the universe? You came after the universe or before?
Genesis
Exactly.
chapter 1.
So you see, the universe, for it to exist, has to have someone who brought it into existence. Yes, who
Not
caused it?
someone. Why someone?
Okay, something.
There you go.
You want to call it something?
There you go.
It's all about semantics with this guy. I don't know why.
You feel more comfortable just using certain words.
Exactly, semantics.
You don't like to use the word God, so what?
Something all powerful and all knowing.
You can call it powerful, all-knowing, no problem
I'm
with
not
me.
sure about that.
As long as you believe in that entity out there,
I'm not using
that's
anything.
fine.
I'm saying I don't know how we came into existence. I'm not saying someone made us or something made us. I'm just saying.
What is the alternative, my friend? What is the alternative? You tell me. I've asked you this several times now. The 3 points I mentioned, from nothing, from something, or from itself, yes, we can easily discount from nothing, because we know nothing cannot bring something into existence. Nothing doesn't even exist. It's just a
There
concept.
seems to be more certainty in what he's saying, as opposed to what you're.
It's called deductive analysis. So when you apply that, and this is a very scientific method, because when they